While most of the world knows the Great British Empire and one of her famous queens, Queen Victoria, few know the story of an African slave girl who would become goddaughter to the monarch herself. When Omoba Aino, just 5 years old, sees her parents unalive by Dahomey warriors who take her captive, little does she know her life will be transformed. Offered as a gift to Captain Frederick Forbes, he quickly spots her intelligence and potential, which leads him to arrange for her schooling. Queen Victoria, who takes a particular interest in her education, becomes a godmother. Overcoming the tragic loss of her parents and the trauma of her beginnings as an enslaved captive, Omoba Aino transforms into the intelligent and sharp Sarah Forbes Bonetta with the support of her early benefactors. Her story is one of remarkable resilience, showing how with determination and the kindness of others, individuals can rise from the most tragic of circumstances. So join me as we explore the inspiring true tale of Sarah Forbes Bonetta, an African slave girl who against all odds became goddaughter to Queen Victoria herself, rising from captivity to royalty through education, inner strength, and the help of compassionate strangers.
Yo soy una hija del Inti Sol, de la Pachamama y del Inti Sol.
King Gezo was a powerful ruler of the Dahomey Kingdom, located in present-day Benin Republic. During his reign, the kingdom relied heavily on annual slave hunting expeditions and slave trade to fund his government. His military campaigns against neighboring towns and villages were reportedly characterized by brutality and destruction. An American missionary, Jacob Boer, describes his campaigns this way. Gezo sacked and abandoned 18 desolated towns with a distance of 60 miles between Badagry and Abeokuta. The whole Yoruba country is full of depopulated towns, some of which were even larger than Abeokuta is at present. Okeadon village, located in present-day Ogun State in Nigeria, where Omoba Aina lived with her parents, was one of such villages described by Boa. King Gezo believed firmly in the slave trade as the main economic policy of his kingdom. When asked to end the slave trade, he emphasized that it was the source and glory of our wealth. The actions and policies of King Gezo's regime caught the attention of Great Britain, which had launched a campaign against the slave trade. In 1850, Britain sent Captain Frederick Forbes as a representative to meet with King Gezo in an attempt to persuade him to end the slave trade and the violent raids that supplied slaves to the markets. When Captain Frederick Forbes first laid eyes on Omoba Aino, the captive girl offered as a gift by King Gezo, he could never have imagined the incredible journey ahead for her. During diplomatic encounters, it was common for envoys representing opposing parties to exchange presents as expressions of goodwill and respect. Captain Forbes describes the exchange of gifts this way. King Gezo presented gifts including a keg of rum, 10 heads of cowries, and a rich country cloth, and a captive girl. This girl turned out to be Omoba Aino, who Captain Forbes quickly accepted on behalf of Queen Victoria as the head of state. He had found out that Aino had been a captive of King Gezo for 2 years, and had he not accepted her, she could have been used for the annual human sacrifice, as the Dahomians are known to treat their captives. Just before he returned to England, he took her to the Church Missionary Society in Badagry, a former slave trading port, where she was baptized as Sarah Forbes Bonetta, after his name and that of his ship, HMS Bonetta. Despite the change of name, and the separation from her African roots, Sarah quickly adapted to a new life. She became a favorite of the crew of HMS Bonetta, who affectionately called her Sally. Before they arrived in England, Sarah had already learned how to speak English fluently. But Sarah's journey was far from over. When Captain Forbes presented her to Queen Victoria at Windsor Castle, the monarch was astounded by the young girl's intelligence and poise. She was so impressed that she took Sarah under her wing, becoming her godmother and providing her with an education fit for a princess. Her Majesty the Queen wrote the following about Sarah in her journal on the 9th of November, 1850, the day of their first meeting. Captain Forbes saved her life by asking for her as a present. She is 7 years old, sharp and intelligent, and speaks English. She was dressed as any other girl. When her bonnet was removed, a little black woolly head and big earrings gave her the true Negro type. Sarah's young heart was shattered the day they received word of Captain Forbes' death from malaria in a distant coastal village. Her kind guardian, who had taken her in after the loss of her parents, was now gone. But it was Queen Victoria who took a particular interest in Sarah's education. Her intelligence and brilliance won the Queen over, and she agreed to take charge of her education. Under the Queen's care, Sarah continued to excel academically. She became fluent in several languages and developed a musical talent. She also became a regular visitor to the royal court, where she was treated as a family member. Sarah's genius and speed of learning impressed all who met her. Within a few years of being under Queen Victoria's guardianship, Sarah had mastered the English language, learned proper etiquette, and shown great talent in music, dance, and academics. The media kept a close eye on Sarah's development and frequently cited her accomplishments as proof of the African mind's potential. The Brighton Gazette, in particular, wrote extensively about her, describing her as a perfect genius who was, I quote, far in advance of any wild child of her age, in aptness of learning and strength of mind and affection. Unfortunately, after arriving in England, Sarah began experiencing persistent coughs that failed to subside. There was a common belief at the time that the English climate harmed the health of Africans, leading to respiratory illnesses. Sarah's coughs seemed to conform to this racially prejudiced stereotype. Despite her education and progress, Sarah's journey was challenging. In 1851, she was sent to the Church Missionary Society School in Freetown, Sierra Leone, to become a missionary. While in Freetown, Sarah continued to receive presents and books from Queen Victoria. However, in 1855, at age 12, Sarah left the school after spending 4 years and was recalled to England at the behest of Queen Victoria. No reason was given for the recall, but it is possible that Sarah was unhappy in Freetown. Unfortunately, Captain Forbes' widow had moved to Scotland and could not take Sarah in. Still, she was placed under the charge of Mr. and Mrs. Scone at Chatham, who were former missionaries with the Church Missionary Society. When Sarah once again met the Queen in late 1855, Queen Victoria recorded this in a journal. Saw Sally Forbes, the Negro girl whom I had educated. She is immensely grown and has a nice slim figure, but her face is too frightful. Despite the Queen's comment, Sarah continued to excel academically and socially. She was well liked by the Scone family and often visited the royal court, where she was treated with respect and admiration. For example, in 1858, Sarah Forbes Bonetta was among the guests at the wedding ceremony of Princess Victoria, Queen Victoria's eldest daughter, to the future Emperor Frederick III of Prussia. Sarah's story reminds us of the challenges African people faced during the Victorian era, both in their own countries and when they were brought to England. Despite these challenges, Sarah's resilience and determination allowed her to overcome them and become a symbol of hope and triumph. Sarah's wedding to Captain James Pinson Labulo Davis, a retired lieutenant in the British Royal Navy who became a wealthy businessman, was a grand affair, befitting her status as the goddaughter of Queen Victoria. Though she had reservations about marrying someone she barely knew, Sarah went through with the wedding, perhaps in part due to the pressure from the Queen. The wedding was a lavish event, with Sarah arriving in 10 carriages and pairs of greys. 16 bridesmaids and guests of all races and backgrounds filled the church, making it a truly multicultural event. The Brighton Gazette reported that Her Majesty Queen Victoria had provided the entire outfit for the event, including a bridal gown and the bridesmaids' dresses. None of the royal family was present at the wedding, and Captain Forbes' brother gave away Sarah. Her new husband's business was in colonial Lagos, and so she had no choice but to relocate there with him. Shortly after marrying James Davis, Sarah gave birth to a daughter in 1863. With Queen Victoria's permission, she named the child Victoria, with the Queen becoming her godmother. The success of Sarah's integration into British society was remarkable for the time. However, the hardships she endured early in life, including the trauma of being captured and separated from her family, would have left her deep wounds. By the late 1870s, Sarah's health began to fail due to a persistent cough that later developed into tuberculosis. Her husband's business also struggled. In 1880, at age 37, Sarah died of tuberculosis in Funchal, a city in Madeira, Portugal, where she had gone to recover. Her death devastated her family. Queen Victoria recorded this in a journal. "So poor Victoria Davis, my black godchild, now 17, who heard this morning of the death of her dear mother at Madeira. Her father has failed in business, which aggravated her poor mother's illness. A young brother and a little sister, only 5, were with their mother. I shall give her an annuity." 10 years later, Sarah's first daughter, with her children, visited the Queen in 1900, and this visit was reported by the London Times. It reported that Bishop James Johnson of Lagos escorted Mrs. Randall, now revealed to be Victoria, daughter of Sarah Forbes Bonetta, and her 2 children, to Windsor Castle at Queen Victoria's command. Her Majesty granted the children the favor of kissing her hands, while she herself kissed them and their mother, and also gave nice presents to the little ones. They had lots of fun at the palace, as they were entertained by the king's ladies-in-waiting and given a tour of the palace. The Times described the meeting as another instance of that tenderness and motherly sympathy which endeared Her Majesty to her people. This story showed Queen Victoria's enduring affection for Sarah, even after her death, extending kindness to Sarah's descendants. Sarah Forbes Bonetta's story reveals tremendous resilience in the face of adversity. Kidnapped as a young girl from the old Oyo Empire into slavery, Sarah could have let the cruelty and trauma define her. However, through determination, she built her own triumphant narrative. She flourished in England, excelling at her studies and charming all with her wit. Despite prejudice as a black girl in Victorian England, she attained prominence, which was a remarkable feat. Her life reminds us that though history can wrong individuals profoundly, it cannot diminish their humanity, resilience, or spirit. Though her life was relatively short, Sarah's accomplishment as a godchild of Queen Victoria, an intellectual prodigy, an inspiration to her descendants, revealed the promise within us all, if given a chance to thrive.